Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead video. So in this one here, I wanted to talk about The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon Season 3 and actually really get into some of the updates here for the season, because there's actually quite a bit of updates. There's a lot of stuff I didn't talk about at Comic-Con. A lot of bigger reveals for this season that I think is actually going to make the show go sort of on the right track. And yeah, I want to talk about it. So before we go any further, make sure to be a subscriber if you want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. The finale does air this Sunday, and so obviously I'll break down that episode, talk about all the bigger moments, and sort of, I guess, how that could set up a season 3. Like, that will be the focus once season 2 ends, is really just focusing on season 3 and also Dead City season 2, right? Like, I think that show's going to be promoted quite a bit, and there's a lot to talk about with season 3, and I haven't really talked about it a lot because I just feel like it's a little weird to talk about season 3 while season 2 was airing. And I will say, in general, with season 2, I think that there's a lot to like about season 2 of Daryl Dixon, but I just think that there were a lot of things that were happening beforehand that you could almost see some of this stuff happening. And so I'll talk about that in my review, because I'm going to do a pretty lengthy review on season 2 that'll probably be out at some point next week. I'm going to go through every single thing, every issue I have from episode to episode, and then also honestly talk about a lot of stuff I really did like, because there's a lot of things I do like about season 2. So yeah, stay tuned for that. But let's talk about season 3 here a little bit here, and one of the things that we learned is that they might not actually go with a subtitle for The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon season 3, because season 2, the subtitle for the season was The Book of Carol, and immediately I wasn't a fan of it because it's just too long of a title. It was really ridiculous. Like, honestly, I think that, I mean, first of all, some people have issues with the titles in general, like just calling it The Walking Dead something, right? To me, that's fine because you want to keep the name there. I think that it's kind of cool that we have all these shows like The Walking Dead World Beyond, The Walking Dead The Ones Who Live, The Walking Dead, and just so on, right? Like, I really like that aspect to it. Fear the Walking Dead is something different, and I feel like if there was an original series, maybe you would call it something different, and they probably should do that. Like, if there's an original series set on new characters, don't call it The Walking Dead something. Definitely call it something else. Like, have The Walking Dead in the title, that's fine, but call it something like, I don't even know, something The Walking Dead, sort of similar to Fear the Walking Dead, right? Because you're almost establishing in that way that it's a new show, right? Because Fear the Walking Dead is, I mean, when people talk about the show, they just sort of call it Fear, right? Like, oh, did you watch the new episode of Fear kind of thing? So you need something different with it, right? If it's going to be a new original series. And so I just think that, you know, for the most part, the titles have worked, but this is the first title where I was like, what is this? Like, The Book of Carol, it just did not work. And I tried to like it, you know, but I just think that overall it was just really unneeded, you know, and I think that that's sadly one of the aspects to season 2 that has been handled really not the best. And some of it is because it's only 6 episodes, but I think that it's a bigger story having Carol come back to the show. And so you need more episodes to tell that amount of a story, because there's so many aspects to, you know, Carol's return. Beauvoir, you need to build up that story. You need to build up the Nest becoming villains and Isabel's death. Like, you needed to build up all this stuff. There needed to be a lot more time spent to all these moments, that I think that's sort of what hurt that overall, is because they did focus more on Carol, right? Which makes sense. Like, you are going to focus a lot more on the character. And I will say, like, having watched, you know, the first 5 episodes here, to me, it seems pretty even in terms of, you know, the storylines. Like, I don't think Carol's getting any more of a storyline than Daryl. Like, maybe episode 1, you could argue, is sort of what gives her more of a story overall. But, like, I don't know. I just think that this probably could have just been called season 2, like The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon season 2. You didn't need the Book of Carol attached to it. I think that just really hurt the season overall, because everyone viewed it, you know, in sort of a negative way immediately. It was just so much. And then, like, what were you going to call the show? Because I just feel like in terms of promoting the show, I see the hashtag The Walking Dead Carol and stuff, but you're calling it The Book of Carol. And it's just like, okay, the show is called Daryl Dixon. Like, you should just use that hashtag, right? Very simple. So I just think the promotion's been a little off for this show. Like, everything has just been very, honestly, just different for this show. That with The Ones Who Live and the other spinoffs, Daryl Dixon season 1 and Dead City season 1, it was pretty simple. Like, everything honestly worked. With this show, it's just been, like, I don't even know. This has been, honestly, in terms of talking about The Walking Dead, it's been the weirdest month that I've ever really experienced, like, talking about The Walking Dead. It's just, I just think that, yes, no subtitle for season 3. That's a good idea. Just call it The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon season 3. Like, that's just the show. Keep it simple. Like, the story for season 2 should have been way more simple. And it's kind of funny when you look at it. Like, the title of the show, The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, The Book of Carol, for season 2 is sort of the issue with the show. There's way too much story in just a little amount of time, right? Like, I think that really is the perfect way to explain season 2. It's really just that, way too much story in only 6 episodes. Like, not enough time to tell it. It's just rushed entirely. And so for season 3, just call it that. I think that, I'm excited for season 3 because I think there's a lot of places that they're actually able to go with the story that it's going to be very refreshing. I think that, and we'll talk about it right away because they are actually, it seems like they're filming in a desert, which is actually, I think, in terms of the tone of the show, is going to be very, very different. We've never really seen that, and I think that's going to be honestly really cool. But yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. But I think that for season 3, when you look at certain story ideas, like, I don't know where Laurent and Ash's story is going to end. Maybe they just go back to America and, like, that's it. In terms of Cadron and Falou, like, maybe they die in the finale and that's it. But also maybe they're in season 3. I just think that for season 3, the nest is probably not going to be a part of that story. And that's just a prediction I have. It's a feeling I have based on the story direction, I would say, of the season. Everything is being told very fast. Everything is ending really quick. And so I think that in the finale, they're just going to want to end this really quick. And so I think that's really where they're going for season 3, is it's going to be a totally brand new story. And that's why I think that season 3 is ultimately going to be a better season than season 2, because the story is going back to being very, very simple. It's Daryl and Carol going to Spain, and then there's going to be, a new story introduced, new characters introduced, and we're going to be learning of all of this stuff. Season 4 is where you could run into a bunch of issues like you did with season 2, I think, because obviously, once we know all the characters, we know the story, and then you're starting to end arcs, like maybe you tell a big story in like 6 episodes again, then you could run into some issues. But I think for season 3, it's honestly likely going to be a really great season, and I think that, not having a subtitle, like, I don't even know what sort of subtitle you could add to it, but don't do that. Like, no subtitles at all. The show is called The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon. You don't need to add a subtitle of like, the journey to Spain or the journey back home or whatever. Like, just don't add anything like that. Literally just call it that. The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon season 3. It's perfect. And then this way everyone knows it's the same show. What's also really cool is that they actually cast Stephen Merchant, I believe is how you say his name. I've recognized him from previous roles and stuff that he's done. I don't know what kind of role he's going to play here on the show, but I'm really excited about that. They've announced a lot of the casting actually for season 3. It's going to be really incredible. I've talked about some of the actors that were going to be on the show. I think that the casting for season 3 is going to be absolutely incredible. Just like in season 1, when we first heard of all the new cast for the season, I'm really excited about that. They're actually going to be filming in a desert. And I think that's going to be really an interesting aspect to this, because episode 1, and that's the one thing that I will say in terms of filming. So I don't follow filming at all. I really don't. I don't see a lot. Sometimes I'll see a post here and there, but I don't really follow it. Like, I don't mind seeing some stuff. I just don't like to be spoiled of things. Like, that's really my biggest issue with that. Like, I don't mind seeing like, oh, they're filming in a place like this, and it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. But the minute I start to hear like, well, this character is here, then I'm like, okay, I know too much of the story at this point, right? So I never like to sort of follow any of that there. But whenever the cast like teases certain locations, that's where it's really exciting. And so I don't know if it was a director, but there's somebody who is working on The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon season 3 right now. I don't know what episode, because they film all this out of order. We learned that. I think they actually talked about that in episode Insider in season 2, that they filmed everything out of order. And so for Lo Sang's death, it happened, I guess, a lot sooner. Then he had to film a bunch of stuff where the character was alive. And so it was very different for him. Like, in his death scene, he sort of had to act like this was sort of the end and like this and that, right? So kind of insane. But in terms of for season 3, like, if this was the director or producer, writer, I'm not sure who it was, but they actually teased that they're working in the desert, and Norman Reedus commented saying like, you're doing amazing work or something like that, like, thank you. I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was something like that. And so immediately I was like, whoa, like, they're actually filming in a desert. Like, that's gonna be so cool to see just visually for the show. Like, I think the tone of the show is gonna feel very, very different than obviously season 1 and 2, and that makes sense because they're going to a totally different location, right? Like, it's the same thing as like when we first went to France. It was like, okay, this is a different show. Like, it feels like The Walking Dead, but it's a different show. And so I hope the show doesn't get like that, though. I will say, in terms of like going into a season 5, 6 or whatever, like every couple of seasons or like every 2 seasons, they have to go to a new location. I'm not going to be a fan of that because like, it's just a bit too much. It's just like, it sort of becomes predictable. Like, all right, every 2 seasons, Daryl and Carol are going to go here or there or there. And it's like, you want to make the story matter, right? Like, you don't want to tell a really cool story and then in season 3, because they're going to Spain, end everything in season 2, and then you introduce all of this for season 3 and 4, but in season 5 we're going to this place now, and now you have to sort of end every storyline that was introduced in season 3 and 4 because now we're going somewhere new for season 5. I don't want that, but I think that The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon season 3 is going to be interesting. You know, I think that season 2, in terms of the writing and all of that, was really always going to have issues. And I look back to how they filmed it, because they filmed season 1 and 2 back to back, right? Like, they literally went from filming season 1 straight into filming season 2. Like, they really didn't have much of a break, or maybe they did have a break, but it was all within like the same year, I'm pretty sure. So it was definitely very different, you know, and I think that that just means that any criticisms that you might have about certain aspects of the story, they weren't going to be able to fix because they already filmed that like the year beforehand. Like, season 2 is very interesting because when season 1 was over, and even after The Ones Who Live, like, we've just been seeing footage from season 2 for a long time now, that it just feels like finally, now that we're watching it, it's like it's finally here. But for season 3, we don't really know a lot about season 3. We have no footage. We've seen nothing really. Like, maybe they show a little teaser after season 2 is over. It's going to be a lot better, I think, overall in terms of an experience watching the show and being excited for the show, because for The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, it was definitely very off, and I think that there's a lot to look forward to for season 3. I do think that for season 3, it's going to be very similar to season 1, because now they can see the criticisms, right? Like, they can actually rewrite stuff right now because they're currently filming. So yeah, I'm excited for season 3 though, but I'll leave it here. Definitely post all your thoughts down below. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.